Alright, so on to part 3 when it comes to runes and magic. Let's talk about staves. Alright, so the Icelandic magical rune staves are what a lot of people think of when they're thinking of bind runes and the magic of bind runes. So, the magical staves, while a lot of them come from Iceland and all, they are only a few hundred years old. They're not that old. A lot of them only date back at most to the medieval times, around maybe like the 13 or 1400s at the absolute oldest, but the oldest records we have are only a few hundred years old. There are some court records of when people were put on trial for witchcraft that record some of the magical practices and the staves. But that being said, you cannot look at the Icelandic magical staves and be like, oh hey, this is part of Viking culture, because a lot of it, most of it, is extremely heavily influenced by the esoteric practices of other cultures and nations, coming from Christian esotericism, different esoteric practices of mainland Europe, and even to a degree Celtic polytheism and the practices of the Druids. I mean, there's some serious similarities between the Celtic writing system of Ogham and the rune staves. So while a lot of the staves do contain runes, it would be improper to think of them as being purely of Viking origin. It's much better to look at them and understand that there is that heavy Christian influence, there is heavy influence from additional esoteric practices besides the Norse pagan ones. So some symbols, yeah, you can look at them and you can use them and do what you want with them, but you got to understand the history behind it as well, even if just believing in them is enough to make them work.